For P5, the Advanced Performance Management paper, there are 6 different syllabus areas that we need to cover. I'll go through them in more detail when we discuss each one, but in principle, or in general rather, the 6 areas are strategic planning and control, economic factors, performance systems and design, strategic performance measurement, performance evaluation, and current developments. Now, not only that, but I think it is useful to think about how many marks are available on the paper. Now, the average number of marks for talking about things, for discussing things, for interpreting things, for describing things, for talking about theory, 74.7. The average number of numerical marks for computations, 45.3. And if any of you say that doesn't add up to 100, you are quite correct. It doesn't add up to 100, it adds up to 120, because there are 120 marks on each exam, because there is one 20-mark optional question that you don't have to do. So you do your paper out of 100, but there's actually 120 marks on each paper, so that adds up to 120. So, first thing to note is that there are more marks for writing than there are for numbers. Second thing to note is even if you get every single number correct, you probably won't pass the exam. And to be honest, you probably won't get every single number correct, but even if you did, you still won't pass. You have to do some discussion. Right, let's look at each of the areas in more detail. Strategic planning and control. This is very much linked in with the P3 business analysis exam, and it's thinking about what exactly we are trying to achieve. It's got things like corporate and business strategy in there. It talks about objectives of the organisation. There is also quite a lot in this area about the different ways that we can do a budget. Now, budgets are a big thing in P5 because, for reasons that will become apparent a little bit later, one of the things that P5 likes us to do is compare what we have actually done with what we budgeted to do. So a year ago we set a budget, now it's the end of the year, we compare our actual performance with our budgeted performance. And one of the things that P5 is interested in is that's not really very helpful if you didn't prepare the budget properly. If your budget is a waste of time, then any comparison is also a waste of time. So there's various budgeting methods in there. Now you can see this tends to be more discussion than computation. 8 marks for computations. It does tend to appear on every single exam somewhere. Section B. Section B is called economic factors, but to be honest with you, it's pretty much everything in the outside world. So Section B will include things like pestle analysis. It will include things like Porter's 5 forces, things that you have seen at earlier papers. What Section B is basically thinking about is you are doing your strategy, and strategy is all about the future. You need to think about how that is going to affect your company. So you have done a budgeted income statement for next year, and included in that income statement is an assumption about how many items you'll sell and what price you will charge for them. Well, if there is a recession, if there is a lot of competition, if the government changes the law for some reason, you might not be able to charge the same prices as you have got in your budget. So your budget might need to be adjusted. So it's about what goes on in the outside world that affects our decisions. It may even be it's not worth selling that product anymore and we have to do something else instead. So although it's called economic factors, in effect, it's about the external environment. So in previous papers, 13.8 marks for discussion. There hasn't been any numbers on this yet. And it's been tested 5 out of the first 6 exams. Shouldn't be too bad an area because it's very, very similar to what we've seen at P3. Again, you will need to apply your ideas to the particular company. Section C, performance systems and design. This is basically about, imagine that you have started your own company. You need to know, obviously, how your company is doing. So one of the things that you will probably do fairly early on is have some kind of method for recording debits and credits so that you can record your receivables, you can record your payables, you can record your inventory, you can prepare your financial statements. Fair enough. But at some point, you are going to have to start having some kind of management accounting information. Now, the trouble is, unlike financial accounting, where there are rules to follow, with management accounting, you can do whatever you like. So Section C is basically about things such as, what should we measure? How should we collect it? Where will the data come from? All those kind of areas. So you can see, out of the first 6 exams, this has appeared on 5, but it isn't really that big a syllabus area. The discussion marks are 6.2, the computational marks 5.8, so it's not that big a deal. What is much more important is Section D. Section D, strategic performance measurement. Now this is where we start taking the numbers that we have got and starting to think about how do they impact on the organisation. So again, in a bit more detail, what are we going to measure and how does that affect people? So for example, one of the big areas in P5, and it comes into quite a lot of different syllabus areas, but I will mention it here, is if you decide to reward somebody for doing something good, you have to have a way of working out if they have done something good. You can't just give them a reward because you feel like it. You have to prove that they've justified it. So presumably, you give them a target. Here is your target. If you meet it, you get a reward. Fine. Now, the trouble is, once you give somebody a target and they know they will get a reward if they meet it, it changes the way that they act. And one of the things in P5 is that sometimes they act in a way that you did not expect them to act. They may even act in a way that damages the organisation. Rather than helping it, they're actually doing something that is causing the organisation harm. So you need to be very careful what you decide to measure and how you decide to go about rewarding people. So strategic performance measurement is, again, trying to help the organisation. What should we measure? What targets should we have? How high should they be? What should we compare things with? And what effect will it have on people? You can see there, 17.5, 17.5 discussion marks, 14.7 computational marks. So a fairly significant area. It's been on every exam. Area E, performance evaluation. 5 of the first 6 exams has featured something on performance evaluation. And basically what it is talking about is, here are the numbers. Please tell me what they mean. So Section D was about what should we measure. Section E is about, right, you have decided to measure it and here's the results. Now interpret what they mean. So you can see there are quite a lot of computational marks here, 13.8. However, there's still more discussion marks. So what the examiner may well do is say, right, there is a set of numbers, you calculate something useful. So, for example, you are given a consolidated income statement and balance sheet, and you start calculating some financial ratios, current ratios, profit margins, gearing. That's the computational marks. But now saying, this is what the gearing number means, this is what the current ratio means, this is what the profit margin means, that's where the discussion marks come in. And there's more discussion marks than there are computational marks. To a large extent, they will expect you to get the numbers right. What they care about is, do you know what the numbers mean? Final syllabus area that we have, Section F, on current developments. Now, all this basically is about management accounting techniques that are relatively recent. Now, I use the word relative because we're actually not really talking about things that are cutting edge. We're talking about things that have been around for some time, 10, 15 years. But the thing that the examiner is interested in, first of all, is particular areas, such as just in time, and also things like why do management accountants change what they do and what drives those changes. Now, again, if you're thinking about financial accounting, if you're thinking about the F3 paper, the F7 paper, the P2 paper, or real life, when an international financial reporting standard changes, you have to change the way you do your accounts. You have no choice about it. Whereas in management accounting, remember, you can do whatever you like. So why don't you just stick with what you've done for the last 40 years? What makes you change? What should you change to? That's what we've got here. Now, discussion marks, 5.5. Curiously enough, this is the only section where there have been more numbers than there has been writing, 9.5. It's appeared on 4 out of the first 6. So you can see that there is a big general spread across the syllabus areas. There's nothing that gets ignored regularly, although there are some areas, section B and section F, aren't tested that often. Section C doesn't tend to have that many marks. The biggies, section D and E, they are on pretty much every exam, and when they are there, they are very, very hefty marks.